Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bartlett SEAD Society Career Workshop 5. This is the last one in the series, and today we're going to speak about time management. As always, welcome to everyone who's here and to anyone who's watching the recording on our YouTube page. And feel free to ask questions at the end of the presentation or get in touch if you're seeing this later. So today we'll have 5 speakers, and they'll each speak about their personal approach to time management as a engineering and architectural design student. All 5 of us are from year 3, so we should have a fairly good grasp on how to survive on this course by now. And everyone will talk about some general tips and also specific tools in terms of what they use to manage their time. So we'll start with Matt.
Hi guys, hopefully you can hear me. So I'm Matt and I'm year 3, as Ina said. I'm going to try and give you some very simple tips that have helped me improve my productivity, time management, and have calmed me down despite having an enormous workload. So I'd like to include a disclaimer before, and that is that even though I'm suggesting these to you, sometimes I also find it difficult to follow these tips and you just get better and better at them. Nobody's perfect. So my first tip is super basic, but it works great for me. And planning out my work to a certain degree is helpful in motivating me and calming me down. So my first suggestion, and this is especially relevant to the days where you don't have lectures, is to plan out some kind of schedule. So if I've decided I'm going to work on design on a specific day, but don't set out a schedule, I'm going to be half working, half checking my phone, walking around, and I really won't be that productive. And that's because I expect that I can work full on for an entire day, which just isn't true. So what I'll do is set out brackets of time where I work and then give myself some breaks. So for example, this is a schedule I've followed before. So for example, you can wake up at 8, run, exercise, get ready, have breakfast, and then start working around 10. Then from 10 till 1, I'll work on something or work on design, whatever you've kind of set out. From 1 till 2, lunch, 2 to 5, work again, then have a break. The breaks can be 10 minutes, half an hour, it depends on the day. Then from around 5 or maybe later till 8, work again, and then at 8 I'll have dinner or I'll have evening plans and I have a free evening. So for first years, I followed a similar plan during April and divided the work hours to study structures, math, and do my coursework. Similarly, in second year, I kind of did the same and it worked really well. An advantage of doing this is that you don't feel guilty for taking breaks because they're part of your schedule, so you have to take them. And obviously some days you'll have lunch plans or will only have the evening to work or won't work at all. And that is fine. You can't be super rigid all the time. That's also part of time management. You know, life won't let you have this schedule all the time. However, if you say to yourself at any given time when you do have time, I'm going to sit down now and work for the next 2 hours, then I'll have a break. That helps you be motivated to finish those 2 hours because you're limiting how long you're working for rather than saying, okay, today I'm just going to work. And then you're kind of just sitting there, but kind of checking your phone, and it doesn't really work for me. So my second tip, again, is very, very basic, but it has been super useful to me. Sometimes when I'm working, I've got my phone next to me, something pops up every couple minutes, or sometimes I'll get up, check my lock screen, then check Instagram. And this happens every hour or even more often. And it makes me lose a lot of time and be very distracted, even when I am not checking my phone. So after agreeing to do this workshop, I was like, I have to try out something to improve my time management so that I can present it at the workshop if it works. And this is it, and it works. So usually back home during high school, I would have left my phone in another room, but I'm not at home and I haven't been doing that recently. So instead, I started just switching it off, completely off for the time I was working until I went for lunch or had a break. Because I'm too lazy to switch it on again and have told myself, as I said in the last point, I've told myself I'm going to work for the next 2 hours. I won't check my social media during that work time that I've set, and it helps me be very productive and not feel guilty when I do check my phone, you know? So when I got used to just switching off and leaving it there for a couple hours and then checking it, I started just putting it on airplane mode instead of switching it off. And now I've gotten used to that, so I can just put my phone on a cupboard and leave it there for whatever X amount of hours I have decided. Usually, obviously, nobody's perfect. So You kind of have to get used to this. And yeah, this has just worked really well for me with regards to being productive and not distracted. So lastly, another crucial aspect of time management is time for yourself, or activities you'd like to do but feel like you don't have time for. We're expected to socialize, exercise, eat well, sleep, and be productive and creative all in one day. And, sometimes that's just not possible. And there are days where you will be more social, there are days where you will work more, sometimes you'll sleep little, and that's fine as long as it doesn't become a routine. So this tip is about not having your life revolve around the course and doing things for yourself as well as working without feeling like you're wasting time, because that's also part of time management, managing activities that you want to do outside of the course. So for me, that core activity or thing I do for myself is running or karate. But it could also be meeting your friends, reading, painting, anything that you enjoy that helps you. So I have found that running calms me down and helps me put things into perspective, which is helpful because I can be a very anxious person. So it also keeps me healthy and fit, which is great. So I have decided that regardless of how much work I have, I am going to exercise 6 days a week because it is part of my routine and it's something that really helps me. It is as important as working or even more. And now that I have that mentality of running is just part of my routine, it's not something optional that I can interchange for work because it is for me. I enjoy it and it does me good. I won't feel like I'm wasting time by doing it. And this is the same for other activities, maybe meeting your friends, going to a gallery, going for a walk, going to the park, do you good and are not wasting time. So having a kind of core activity or set of core activities that you do for yourself, at a certain point of the day or at a certain point of the week, regardless of your workload, can really help and is part of your own time management and your own well-being. So those are my 3 main tips. Hope this has been helpful. And yeah, any questions, just feel free to message me.
Thank you, Matt. That was great. Next up, we'll hear from Erin.
Hi everyone, so my name is Erin. I'm also a third year in the course. And today I wanted to first talk about procrastination. So I think that's kind of our main enemy from all of us on the course. And it's basically an effect from your stress and your anxiety. So I think the best way to deal with the procrastination is to try and calm you down by doing some things that you actually want to do and you want to work on. So I think the best way to work in the course in general is to identify what works best for you. So try to identify when do you work better, where and with whom, because I know that sometimes we feel like we have to work with other people from the course, although it gives us much stress, or sometimes it's better for you to work with people. So I guess really try to identify what works the best for you. So yeah, identifying if you're a morning person, an evening person, when do you work best and all that, I think that helps you calm down and really rely on where you're the most efficient. So yeah, for me, I work really well in the evening, so that's when I will try to do the most difficult tasks. And when I feel like I'm the least motivated and I tend to procrastinate more, I'll try to do some easy things that I actually enjoy working on. So I think yeah, that's one of the biggest tips I have. I also think it's really important not to pull all-nighters. I know it's really hard in the course to do that because everyone um, tends to struggle a lot with sleep. But I do think that that's the main thing that causes stress, anxiety, and then causes procrastination. And it's really hard to work really efficiently when you're that sleep deprived. So yeah, even though everyone says it, I think it's like one of the main things to really try to do well. Just try to sleep because that's like gonna solve all your issues. Yeah, trust me on that. And so in terms of managing expectations, I think again, in order to avoid procrastination, avoid too much stress and anxiety, managing your expectations is really important. And I think that's something I learned from mainly this year actually. So kind of realizing, sorry, that you're not going to be able to do everything you're supposed to do during the week because it's just too much most of the time. So rather than setting up some lists that are just endless with everything you need to do for your next tutorial and everything, just try to be more realistic with yourself and what you can do. So it's okay if you don't do everything your tutors asked you, as long as you actually work on a few things and you're happy with what you have done, rather than stressing half the time and losing all this time doing nothing else than yeah, panicking. So I think managing expectations is really important. And yeah, it's just about not being too overwhelmed all the time, I guess. And perfectionism, so being perfectionist, is a big issue on the course as well. I think in most of the creative sectors, it's a really big problem. So don't worry if your work is not perfect all the time. Yeah, in a way, it doesn't matter that much, and you'll be better the next time. So yeah, just try to manage your expectations on yourself. I think that's really important. And then the last point I wanted to make is more about work efficiency than time management. But I think the Pomodoro technique helped me a lot this year as well. So you're probably, a lot of you are probably familiar with that, but it's about setting some time to actually be efficient in your work, and then take a break. So I think the basic one is 25 minutes work session and then 5 minutes break. You can do a 50 minutes work session and then 10 minutes break. That works as well. But it's about making sure that during that time lapse, you're only focusing on your work. So I usually, relating to what Matt was saying, I usually just put my phone on airplane mode for 25 minutes or 15 minutes, making sure I don't like get distracted at all by that. And then when I get a break, I can then look at my notifications or whatever's been happening on my phone. So yeah, I think that's something that helped me a lot. And yeah, I think avoiding to multitasking is very important as well. So I think when I tend to work, I always get ideas of what I should do later, or what I should do in that moment. So yeah, thinking of, oh, I should buy some bread, or I should clean my window and everything. And it tends to get in the way of my way of working. So I think I always try to have a notepad next to me where I write everything I want to do later. So it's about just writing down what you want to do. So you're not scared of forgetting to do it, but just like writing it and not doing it when you have that moment of high focused work. Yeah, so I talk about all that in a podcast. I have a podcast on Spotify where I talk about my experience as a architecture student. So if you want to check that out, yeah, that'd be great. That's it for me, I think.
Thank you, Erin. Some really useful tips. And yeah, everyone, do go follow her podcast. I think it's a great opportunity for us to get a further insight beyond this workshop series, and also great for us to support our peers. So yeah, go check that out. Next up, we have Isaac.
Thanks, Ina. So yeah, I'm also from third year, and I kind of broke down my tips into three aspects: developing a system, prioritization of your tasks, and the timings that you work at. So in terms of developing a system, it's all about something that works for you. And I found that in first year, I tried out a whole load of different things. And you can see like on the side, my Notion timetable. I don't know if you've heard of the app Notion, but it's like an app on your phone and your computer as well. It's really good for either note taking, or you can use it to make lists and link that to calendars like I've got there. So I found, yeah, first year and second year is really good at experimenting, finding what you like, whether that's, syncing your Outlook calendar or just physically writing on like a notepad. At the moment, I personally write on my iPad because I like having my lists easily accessible, and I go back to them quite a lot. So I find that really useful. And also in terms of maybe when you like making your lists, whether that's the same point in the week, maybe as the week starts, or for me, it's kind of after design tutorials on Thursday, I quite like to make a list for the upcoming week, and plan a little bit of when I'm going to do things, whether that's work related or obviously other things not work related are equally as important. And in terms of prioritization, obviously that's quite related to what I was just talking about. But I found, especially on this course, it's quite difficult to know how long things are going to take you to do, and that's even more so for design and creative aspects. So it can be really hard to as you know, say, oh, it's going to take me, 2, 3, 4 hours to do this part, and then I'll move on and do this. And I find that that can be a bit overwhelming when you have a lot to do and you kind of make a list and then don't get through very much of it, or plan to do a certain amount by your next tutorial, and then maybe you don't quite get around to all of it. So I think ordering your tasks by importance and then maybe working through them at the pace that works best for you can sometimes work. And then you don't always feel like you're super behind on your tasks. Because yeah, like we've said before, you can't do everything, and you're not going to be able to give 100% effort to every module and every project that you're working on. And then I think the time, and I guess also place, like previously discussed, that you work is really, really important and has such a big impact on the way that you work, and your work efficiency, and just how much you enjoy working. So yeah, again, like with the coming up with a system, experiment with a few different things. What times of the day do you like working? For me, I never used to be a morning person until this year, third year, and I started coming a lot earlier, like sort of going before lectures and working before lectures rather than later at night. Which for me that worked quite well for a few months. I think it's also just important that you make sure if you're, getting up really early, you're also giving yourself enough time to sleep, because I maybe didn't always do that. So it's all about trying to find a right balance. I guess that's quite a good theme to sum up all of what we're talking about, is balance is really important. And yeah, that's my tips.
Thank you, Isaac. Hopefully we get some more morning people after this. Next we have Alex.
Yeah, hi, I'm Alex. I'm also third year, and I came with three main tips that I have for you that work for me, and maybe they will work for you too. So these are the importance of a systematic reminder system, quality over volume to find the balance between these two, and to also allocate time for your personal development. So first, when I'm speaking about the reminder system, if you've seen at my colleagues, most of them have time allocated for each of the tasks. And what I do here very differently, I split the work that I have to do into more tasks, but I don't allocate a time for them, because in the previous years I found out that it's better to not think how long I should work on one of the tasks. And what I'm doing this year is having a long list with lots of more tasks, like it could be just adding a title to a page, or editing one Rhino model, or finishing a script. But even though they are really short, I have lots of them, and I start to organize them in the order of their priority, and I'm trying to do as much of them per day. So the important thing here is to have to know how to divide each big task in really smaller tasks, and how to organize them in a correct order so you meet the or all the deadlines. Then the second one, a really important factor I learned last year during my second year in the define NDP1, was to know how to balance the quality of work and the volume of work. So I experimentized with both, like having lots of work but with poor quality, but also doing really high quality but turning up to the tutorials with one or two sheets. And in the end, none of them was actually the right way to do it. So you need to find a way for how to balance this. For me personally, if the same thing, dividing like I'm speaking here mostly about design, but dividing all the tasks you have in four categories. This would be environmental task, structural, architectural, but also aesthetic tasks, which are mostly about the portfolio and representation and visuals that you prepare for the final submission. And by dividing this the project in these four categories, you can make sure that you progress in all of them in parallel, so you don't leave one behind. So in this way, you will always have a good volume of work because you work on all four in parallel, but you can do each of them in quite a good quality, like high quality, because you're working just on one environmental thing, one structural and one architectural, like not lots of environmental, lots of structural and so on. And the last one, one thing that really pushed me further in my development was, even though I don't work constantly, like Erin previously said, having a time gap that you only focus on working than having a short break. For me, it's more naturally. So if I'm in the mood of working, I work. But then if I want to stop, because I don't have the a good mood of it, I just stop and do something else. But the thing is, and the most important thing about this approach is what to do with the time when you are not actually working. So there are two things that I usually do when I know I have lots to work and I don't have the mood and the energy to do it. One is to take a break, but using that break to further research in uh, um stuff that I'm interested in. For example, I'm really keen on using Grasshopper. So if I don't have the mood to work, I just look at tutorials, look at forums, like find more information and research for my own personal use. Or this year I was just searching for internships and so on. And the other thing that I really suggest you on doing when you don't find the energy or the mood on working, just take a break and do some sports. So I was a really active person if I was really little, and when I came to uni, I really found it hard to find time to do to practice sports. And this year I prioritize it even more than last year. And every time I'm not in the mood of working, I just go work out and so on. And if you like me, this kind of really active type of person, you'll find it that after you get tired working out, you'll be much more in the mood of working, like for uni. So yeah, I hope you find this tip good and maybe you'll try them out. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I will continue with the final presentation, which is my own, and then we can open up to some questions and extra tips from some of the other people in the meeting. So what I will talk about is the general approach and system that I have, which I believe is quite universal, and I will explain how you can also see the exact same system in everything that the other four speakers spoke about, even though they might have not just identified it as clearly. I'll talk about what I call 3-tier time management, and which I believe is something that is used in not just time management, but also the management of a construction project or anything else in practice or in life. Then within those 3 tiers, I will go into the specific tools that I'm using, just as the others showed, Pomodoro technique or Notion or other like apps or calendars or specific tools, which won't necessarily work for everyone. These are the particular ones that I'm using, whereas the system, I believe, is more of a universal thing that anyone could apply to their own time management. I'll give some tips on how to implement the system that I'm using and the tools that I'm currently using that sometimes change. And then I want to speak about 2 other things, being keep on improving your system and the fact that it's never too late to start. So on the keep on improving your system, all of us now, and just as Matt said, she just tried something new specifically for this workshop. And myself, I'm speaking about having a very general system, which is something that I keep on developing and changing from year to year, but even like from week to week. And it's really important to figure out better ways to manage your time. Whenever you see something is not working, you don't just say, well, that's it, then I'm not trying that anymore. It's about improving and talking to your friends, reading books about that if that's something that is really important to you, listening to podcasts, going to seminars, workshops like this, etc., constantly trying to improve. And then the other thing being that it's never too late to start. I think for the whole of high school and first year on this course, I didn't have any sort of time management system. All of high school, I never had to study. I never had to do anything besides like going to school and showing up to exams. Just because for me, it's very natural to learn from just listening and taking notes, not really spending any time on my own. And then year two hit me when that wasn't working anymore. And I was feeling like I wasn't in control of my life, doing consecutive all-nighters. It really took a toll on me. I didn't even have a proper like calendar system or agenda or anything like that. And now it's working out, and it's really, really never too late to start, even if there's someone from year three or even year four or anyone else watching this video recording later on. Just take your time with it, figure out where you want to start, how important is this to you. But I guarantee you that it is going, if your goal is to be more efficient, you need to have some sort of time management system, unless you're some sort of genius and everything is just working out. But I doubt that that's the case, because then you'll be lacking on other aspects of the time management that are like sleep or just leisure activities, etc. So about the what I call the general three-tier system for management, the three parts of it are pre, during, and post. And this applies to time management, but it also applies to anything you can think about. Say, as I mentioned, a construction project, which is the field that we're working in, you have the stage where you design stuff and build it. Then when it is in occupation, which is during, and then what is we're increasingly talking about and figuring out is how to maintain it, how to do post-occupancy evaluations and stuff like that. The same goes with absolutely everything. Even when you study, you plan your study or like study for your exam, you do your exam, eventually you get your grade, and you should be looking back at why did this happen? What did I miss out? There's always a planning stage, a active stage when something is happening, and then a stage after it where you reflect on it or look back. So for me, specifically for time management, what goes in the pre-stage, which is the very general one that can happen far, far ahead and be very over a period of a year or a term or a month or depending on what really you're trying to plan, is figuring out your priorities. So what you will be focusing your time on, listing tasks, so splitting those priorities into specific things, deciding on time commitments, or deciding on your approach. So maybe you end up doing something like what Erin was saying, specify that you're going to work for 25 minutes on different tasks and then move on, or have blocks in your calendar, work on different things, or do just a list like Alex was saying. It doesn't necessarily need to be the same approach, but in any case, you have this time when you think of what you're going to work on, which is in the pre-phase. Setting expectations is very important. What do you aim to achieve? Is that reading more, getting better grades, completing your tasks faster so that you have time off? You kind of need to know what you're working towards, and then ultimately making a plan so that you know what you need to do to achieve those expectations and commitments. Then secondly comes the during phase, which is when you're actually doing the work. That for me includes, besides obviously just doing the work, developing the plan, because the pre-phase might be a plan that's over a whole term or a month or something like that. In the during phase, I'll be working and like constantly, even within the same day, changing what I plan to do for the rest of the day, or like making the work for something shorter or longer for something else, depending on how I manage. Then obviously execution, the actually like doing what you're supposed to be doing. And then always adjusting and figuring out what works or doesn't work in the moment. Even if you plan for something, you don't necessarily always need to stick to your plan. Obviously, you'll find out that maybe that wasn't the best course of action. And then in the post part, which I think is just equally as important as the pre-part, planning and reflection can't go without each other. That is where you look back and see, did you meet those expectations that you set? If you didn't meet them, why is that? Are you happy with not meeting them? Do you want to change something in the future so that you have a better chance at meeting them? So that's about looking at the data you've gathered. So it is important to gather some data, very like scientifically speaking, and this is time management is something that you should treat as any other work project or process or anything like that. Reflect on it, and then identifying areas for improvement. What could you do better? Where is your system lacking in rigorousness, or is it because you procrastinated? Is it because you used your phone too much, and then you imply a system to reduce your usage of social media platforms? Or did you not succeed just because you had a bad week, something bad happened, and then maybe it's not about the system? Or did you not sleep enough, and then you need to work on that? So I can see how these three areas were visible in all of the other four speakers' ways of managing things, maybe a bit differently and not so identifiable, but you can clearly tell where you're planning to do something, what you do while you're doing it, which might be a reward system or a Pomodoro technique, and then what happens after, and like redeveloping your system. I'll then talk about in each of these specific three phases what I do and what tools I use for them, which is obviously something that is working for me right now that I did differently probably a couple months ago, and I'll probably do differently in a couple months, but is where I'm at right now and how this is working out for me. But obviously, I believe the general system won't change. What will change are the specific tools and like subsystems that I'm using. So in the pre-phase, I think there are, for me, two big portions of it. One being the big picture, so setting out goals, commitments, and the time frame of what I'm doing, which I will do at the beginning of the academic year, so kind of for the whole year, and then at the beginning of different terms, at which point I like to do this by hand. So I've got this nice year-long planner that you can see pictures of, and I have here with me. I don't care. It's not like when you see everyone has it on their phones now, and you see people that are in their 40s, 50s that have these like handwritten planners that they carry everywhere and have all of the information. For me, it's not like that. I keep this at home and I just use it for like the general part of the planning. But I still do have everything else on my phone. So you can see on the left picture is like a calendar of the whole year, rather of 2 years. And I just have very general things on there, like the beginning and end of the academic year, the beginnings and ends of terms, holidays, big travels and trips that I already know the dates of ahead, and kind of figuring out what's going on. And on the right hand side is just a blank page, which I don't think you can see, and I don't think you can understand probably because I believe most of it is written in Bulgarian. But anyways, this is what I've done at the beginning of the year and at the beginning of term one and term two, where I kind of like take a blank page, or it can be any like blank piece of paper, and write down what are my commitments for that time period. So obviously the main one, or the biggest one, or the one that immediately all of us will have in common is uni. Split that into the different courses. But then to that is for me SEAD Society, which I'm career lead of, Bulgarian Society, which I'm president of, Engineers in Action, which I'm also president of, then reading, which is something that's really important to me, sport and badminton, which I play and is also really important to me. So kind of all the things that I want to be doing over the next year or the next 3 months, and kind of set out all of these things. Do I want to be doing all of them every week? In this case, my answer was yes. So I've listed all the things that, not like one-off activities, but things that I want to be doing on a weekly basis. And what I did here was kind of think for each of them how many hours a day and a week I want to be spending on. So for example, sleep. Before I had such a system, as I said, year one, year two was hectic. I was just doing a ton of all-nighters. And this is, as everyone before said, like we cannot stress how bad it is to like get in this loop of just doing constant all-nighters, which causes more all-nighters because you're more stressed, you procrastinate more. Just don't do all-nighters. I understand that you can be occasionally pushed to do one before a big deadline or something, but don't do them on the regular. I used to laugh about it last year and say I have a pre-scheduled all-nighter on Monday because we had design on Tuesdays. Don't do that. Like in no situation you should be doing that. And obviously your health is much, much before getting a good grade in design. So for me, I said within this that one of my top priorities is getting, hopefully the big goal is getting 8 hours of sleep per day, which is 56 hours a week. So this is one thing. Then another thing I've said is I want to work X amount of hours on design, X amount of hours on my two other modules. Then I want to work not work, but read 4 hours a week, because this is something that's really important to me. And I realized that in high school, I loved reading books. And then year 1 and year 2, I probably read like 2 books over the whole year. I want to be reading books. This is really important to me. And I've decided I want to be reading 4 hours a week. I want to be doing sports 5 hours a week. Um, I kind of list all the different things. Obviously, every week is going to be different. I'm not going to exactly stick to those times, but this is kind of my ideal week and ideal time distribution on what I would really want to be doing and how I believe I would be most efficient. Obviously, this will change because my commitments might change, but as soon as my commitments do change, I'll rework this list and kind of try and figure out again what I want to be doing and how I want to be doing it and for how long. So this is about setting your goals and commitments and the time frame over which this is happening. And it's a bit abstract and kind of like planning for a very long period of time. And this is the first part of what I've done to manage my time. Then going into the second part, which is much more detailed for me, is weekly and daily planning. So the first part that I showed is like this big thing that probably took me like 2-3 hours to like sit down. I did that in September, like sit down and write out everything and think about what I want to be doing. Then the other thing I'm doing is every week I've decided that on Sunday I'll dedicate half an hour for organization. And in that half an hour on Sunday, I'll open my planner to the respective week because it's a weekly planner. You can see on the picture on the left that I've got on the left hand side all the days, and then on the right hand side an empty page. And then in the empty page, I'll write out the titles of all my different commitments. So as I said, all of my design and my other 2 modules, then Bulgarian Society, SEAD Society, etc. And I'll write for each one what my specific tasks for that week are, like what I want to achieve that week. And then I'll start allocating to different days. Plus, I'll put my big meetings and lectures and things that are already set. And then this is kind of the general thing that I'll do on a Sunday. And then I'll go into my calendar on my iPhone, which I'm using the Apple Calendar. You can use the Notion calendar or the Outlook calendar, whatever you feel like. I go and I start putting the actual blocks of what I'll be doing. I do a general one on Sunday, as I said, where I'll mostly put like lectures and things that have been pre-decided. And then I'll also have a bit of a look at it every evening, or you can do it every morning, but I'm really not a morning person. So I'll look at it every evening before going to bed for another like literally 2 or 5 minutes to just fill the gaps, because I'll have lectures that are obviously set, things like an exam or like some commitment I have with my friends, like going out or going to badminton, which is a set commitment. Those will go in as soon as I know them or on Sunday. And then I'll fill all the gaps with, I'll study this, I'll work on that, I'll work out, I'll go to the gym, I'll do this, I'll do that. And you can see on the bottom what my calendar looks like. I try to have everything completely filled out. Where it's not filled out, it means I'm either sleeping or eating or just resting and not doing anything. And then I'll try to have working hours, a minimum of hours that I figured out from how many hours a week I want to work on the different things, summed everything, divided it by 7, and I kind of know how many hours, active hours, I need per day. Another important thing that really helps me with the calendar is color coding, which I also saw on Isaac's calendar, but he didn't really speak about it. You can see on the top, I've got all my different calendars. And in blue, I've got my free time, extracurriculars, which is all of societies and other things that I do. Then purple, UCL, which is all of my lectures, and then a study calendar, and then another one where I enter everything just to know what I'm doing and see if I've got a day that's like all blue and I'm just resting and being out with friends, then I might need to do a bit more of studying stuff on the next day. Or something like that. But yeah, I've got the general plan for my whole week, and then I can look at it day by day. So that's what I do to plan my tasks and what I want to be doing. And then when it gets to actually doing stuff, this is a bit problematic. I get very distracted, go on my phone and not manage to realize how many hours I've worked or not. So something I've started doing since January, and it's working really, really well for me. It might seem a bit extreme to some people. It did to me as well in the beginning, but it's working really well. And I genuinely recommend it to anyone who really needs to get in control and manage their time. Is this app called Toggle Track, which, as the name suggests, it tracks everything basically, or like whatever you tell it to track. But within that app, it's essentially a timer. You turn it on when you start working on something, you stop it when you stop working. You can go to either like stopping it every time you look at your phone or when you go to the toilet or something like that or not. For me, this is what I'm doing because I'm trying to figure out, say, if I've got on my calendar a 3 hour block where I want to work on design, how much of that time did I actually work on design? So that way, if I'm constantly turning it on and stopping it, I know when I was on my phone, when I was in the toilet, when I was just chatting to someone, and I figure out that maybe out of 3 hours, I actually only worked two, and then I can adjust my schedule based on that. So it sounds a bit like hard to do. It was for the first week, and I completely forgot about it. And now I absolutely manually just don't even think about it. I just go and turn it on and completely forget that this is even something. Like I do it same as I'm breathing or like doing something else. I just go and turn the tracker on. Um, super seamless. It works on my Apple Watch, on my phone, on my computer, literally on anything. You can turn a timer on from your computer, stop it from your phone, etc. And within it, you can choose if you just want to monitor your schoolwork, like your work on uni projects without lectures or also with lectures or other things. For me, I'm monitoring everything that I don't consider leisure. So I monitor, you can see in the middle, the different projects that I have created for myself. And in projects, I have admin, career, and they're also color coded in the same colors as my calendar. Then I have DP2, which is design, EIAs, engineers in action, making buildings, management and mechanics, and sensing are other four modules. Reading, which is when I read books, SEAD and BG's, SEAD Society and Bulgarian Society. Skill development is also something Alex was talking about personal growth, and he's watching Grasshopper tutorials. I'm coding an Arduino, stuff like that. And then I'm also tracking my sleep and the times I spend doing sports, because these are the things that I want to focus on. There are very many different ways to use that app. You can be tracking even more than that. You can be tracking how long you're taking to eat, how long you're taking to shower, and everything like that. Or you can be tracking maybe just the time you're spending on uni work, or even just the time you're spending on design. Maybe like you've not got the same problem as me, but you've got a problem where in design you're spending too much on architecture, not enough on engineering, structure, and environmental. And then maybe you'll just start the timer and do environmental, structural, architecture, just to know how many hours you're working on each of those. That works as well. So those are my projects. And within each project, you can have a specific task. On the right, you can see what the timer actually looks like on my computer. It sits on the left-hand corner, and I've created a shortcut, Control-T, that automatically just opens and closes it. So I don't really have to think about it and look at it constantly. And whenever I start doing something, like this is a screenshot from right before this meeting, I'll turn it on. So in this particular example, I've turned it on SEAD, which is a task within SEAD/BG, which is the general thing that I have for societies. And then you can see below today what I've done. I've done a total of 1 hour 26 of organization on engineers in action. I've done 2 hours and a half a lecture in sense, sensing and controls, which is one of our modules. And then I get an overview for the whole day, how many hours I have. And my goal personally is to have anywhere between 16 to 18 active hours, which includes sleep hours, because this is also something I'm tracking. So yeah, you can kind of set a goal and be able to look at where you are based on your goal. So for example, if at 8 p.m. I'm at 12 out of 16, it's not really good, unless I'm going to spend the rest of the evening working. But if at like halfway through the day, I can see that I'm already doing really well, maybe I'll take more breaks or like rest a bit more. So yeah, this is what I'm using while working, just so I can. There's also a bit of this, you feel bad when the timer isn't on, because you know that if you're doing things right, the timer should be on right now because your calendar says it should be on, and then you know that it's not on because you're doing something else, but you only allow yourself to turn it on when you're working, obviously, or whatever you're wanting to track. So this is what I'm doing in the during phase. And then very briefly on the post phase, which as I said, is for me, most importantly, compare the pre and the during. So figure out where you are based on your expectations, evaluate the collected data. And in my case, this is very literal. I have collected data as I can look at the report from this Toggle Track app, but that can be just, if you're not using something as serious as that, it can just be collected data, can be your own personal reflection, just the data of, have you done well this week in design? Did your tutorial go well? Did you manage to rest enough? Did you sleep enough? Just think about those things. That can also be collected data, even if it's not specific, like times and minutes of how much you worked on each thing. And then identify the issues and think about adjustments. For me, it's really easy because every Monday, I've set it that way. I get an email that sends me what you can see on the right-hand side, an email which says your weekly Togo track overview, time tracked last week, and I can see a total of how many hours I've tracked over the last week. Obviously, I also know how many I wish I would have tracked because I did this kind of setting out my goals in the first phase. So I can compare, I wanted to track 116 hours. I've tracked 105. That's fairly good. I'm within a 10% of what I wanted to do. To me, that's a great achievement. If I've wanted to track 110 hours and I've tracked 50, probably not really good. And then I can see for each specific thing, for example, that week I can see my sleep is at 55 hours. I want it to be at 56. It's really good. If I see 45 here, I'll be pretty concerned and I'll just like look back and be like, what is happening? Did I have a massive deadline and that's why I did an all-nighter and didn't sleep one night? Or is there just a general issue? And yeah, kind of look back on this and plan any adjustments or how I want to be more efficient and work better. I think that's it for me on my system and what I've been using. And yeah, we can go to if Malena wants to jump in and give some extra tips. And if not, we can go to some questions.
Yeah, I just want to mention a couple of things. I mean, most of it has been like summarized by all of you guys, but I just want to make clear that the people that were in this meeting are people that generally have a good organization, and it's like 60 something of us in the course. So probably most of the people don't really have a good time management, and that's just something normal, like it's normalized across the course. So anyone that is struggling with it, like it's something normal. It's not like you're the only one. Like in our course especially, it's going to happen even if you don't want it, because most of the things don't really depend on us, and it's just difficult to be able to do everything at the same time. So it's just normal, and then each person is going to have like a different system that works better. The second point I want to highlight is that everyone sort of struggles with procrastination, and there's many things that you can do with for that. Like you can either like have this app, turn your phone off, do like other things, but sometimes if your mind just doesn't want to do it, or if it just shuts off, it's much better to go out for a run, or to take the morning off, or to take the evening off and have really a rest, than to try like being there and continuing and really in the end not doing really any work but haven't done any rest at the same time. So sometimes it's just good to like be off, and then make it better. Especially for me, that works really well. Like if I'm not really working and then I take it off, then the next time that I start working, it's much more useful. And I really, really would recommend that. And the last thing that I just want to mention is that, especially in our course, because I don't want to really speak a very long time about it, but there's a lot of people around with like mental health problems, and that's something that we should normalize as well. Like on average, the percentage of people that struggle with it, like stress, anxiety, even depression in our course is really high. And it's nice that people are open about it, but it's just so you have in mind that, at least for me, like I might have lunch, I might have like classes, I might have to go for a run, I might have kickboxing, and then all the other time that is in my schedule is dedicated for design. Like it's allocated in that way mentally, automatically. And in some way, like we should also do other things with our lives right now, like not just work and study. Because from here to 2 years time, like you will look back and whatever you're doing might not be that much, like it might be much more worth it for you to maybe go for a run or to go out and socialize. So keep that in mind, that it's also important, as my colleagues here mentioned, and to not feel like really guilty. Still nowadays by myself, like I never finish everything that is in my to-do list. Like for sure, every day, like I moved something from my to-do list to the next day. And that's because it's probably something that is not realistic, or as my colleagues mentioned, it's because we don't really know how much time design is going to take us. Like it's not something solid like structures tutorial or like an environmental analysis. Like it's something that you never know how much it's going to take. So just stop feeling guilty, like you cannot really control it. And that's it, like it's not the end of the world. You shouldn't be like stressed about it, like it's normal, it's okay. And yeah, that's it for my side. Thank you.
If we have any questions from people who are in the meeting right now, just feel free to unmute yourself and speak. And if not, I think that. All right. Then thank you everyone who came and everyone who is watching the recording of this session. And I hope this is helpful for the next years and the future generations of MEng EAD engineers. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your week.